Hi. So I have a story for you today that is one of my favorites to tell. And before I dive in, I need to set the scene a little bit, give a little bit of context. So I grew up in a family that had 8 kids. I was number 6 out of 8. And as you can imagine, that was a little bit chaotic. And I attribute a lot of this story happening to the fact that I was number 6. My parents were tired, and their 6th child was a little bit, as they called it, force of nature. So going up against me when I had my mindset on something took a lot of energy. And as kid number 6, that was just not something they did very often. There were a lot of times in my childhood that I was able to just present a really good case for something. And my parents tended to have an attitude of, if it's not illegal and it's not immoral and it's not harmful to you or somebody else or property, then if you can make a good case for it, we're probably going to let you do it. So this is a good story that exemplifies that. When I started my sophomore year of high school, we had been at this new school, let's see, since 8th grade. So I did 8th grade, freshman year, and sophomore year. So I'd been there for 2 full school years. Prior to being at the school, I had grown up in the suburbs of Minneapolis in a very well-off school district, very huge, a lot of money, a lot of resources. It was just, I guess some people don't like a big school, but there was a lot of resources, a lot of potential in that school district. And we moved down a very small school through farmland to get to our school. And, thinking back, I was looking back on the school that I had come from, knowing, the people I went to school with back there, they're sophomores in high school, and they're able to take this huge variety of like AP classes, and they've got all these extracurriculars that they have options to join. And where I was at, we had, I believe it was 2 AP courses, and I want to say it's AP English and AP Biology, neither of which I had any interest in whatsoever. But I was a very advantageous child. I wanted to achieve a lot. I had huge dreams of going to college, specifically University of Minnesota was my target. And I could not help but every month that went on into school, I just kept thinking back to my peers at the previous school I had been at and knowing how advanced the academics were there, and just thinking they are going to graduate as seniors from that high school and be so prepared to go into University of Minnesota. And even if I stay here and do everything I possibly can, and if I even get into University of Minnesota, I'm going to be behind all of my peers that had gone to this previous school. And that was a very clear image in my mind. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. But that was the image I had as a 15, 16-year-old. And I started to get really worked up about not wanting to delay my future academic career and my future young adult career. So the more I tried to just think about ways to advance myself, going into my sophomore year at this high school, I decided I was going to try to take an AP course online. So the state I was in had some resources for, I think it was meant to be more for like homeschool children, but there was a lot of class offerings online. I found an AP macroeconomics class and took a study hall in my schedule. And I literally sat in the library and took this AP macroeconomics class kind of at my own pace. And that was horrendous, by the way. I did not know anything about economics at the time, and it was a real struggle to get through that class. But that was just my version of trying to find some way to maybe get ahead a little bit. And I believe it was Thanksgiving of my sophomore year. I was with all of my family, and I was talking to my brother-in-law. So remember, I'm number 6. This brother-in-law is married to my second oldest sister. So they're quite a bit older. They had already gone to college and were young adults and married, and telling him how just unhappy I was with my schooling and complaining, a lot of complaining, to be honest. And he looked at me and he goes, "I'm going to drop out and go to college. Why not? Just ditch your last 2 years of high school, go to college." And the college him and my sister had met at was actually a really small college, an hour away from where I lived. And he goes, "They take you. Just, you're smart enough. Drop out, go to college." So I went home and I started researching and started talking about this idea with my parents. And my dad mainly just goes, well, I mean, yeah, you have to do some research because you might come across some, concrete walls that you just can't get over. But if there are, other just hurdles you can get past on your own, he said, I'm not going to do any of the work for it. But if you want to do it, then by all means, whatever, look into it. And it looked like after my research, there was no concrete walls that would absolutely stop me. I ended up going up and visiting the college, talking to the college admissions guy, and he basically said, yeah, go take your ACT a year early and fill out an application, and we'll see where we're at, and get your GED as a high school dropout. So I should clarify here. In the community that we're in, I know a lot of people in this scenario, they're like, well, do post-secondary. We were 30 minutes away from the nearest college that offered any type of classes. It was a community college, 30 minutes away. Probably not a lot of courses I would have been super interested in, but I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job. If I wanted to get a car, I would have needed to get a job. And then I would have had to be working and doing college courses and driving an hour each way with the round trip. And that was just not interesting at all. And even the credits that I would have gotten from there, I wasn't interested in. And let's be honest, there was a part of me that was honestly just kind of itching to get out, move on. And the thought of college sounded good for me. So, and there wasn't really just even the offering of like online courses like there are now. It was very limited. And I liked this plan. So I started diving into it, ended up taking my ACT, got a good enough score on that, started putting things in motion, sent in my application, got accepted. Pending, I passed my GED. And that second half of my sophomore year was spent putting all these things in motion and making things happen and breaking it to my friends that I was ditching the rest of high school to go to college. So that, there was a lot of conversations with my parents, and looking back on it, definitely was a case of, it wasn't the worst thing their daughter at 16 could be doing. The college I was going to was a small Bible college, not like a state university party school or anything. And I was an hour away from home. It was still a healthy place, even for a 16-year-old. It was still a good fit for me, little young, naive Amanda. And I was able to get my GED scheduled. Interesting tidbit. I had talked to my school counselor throughout the year about all of this, and there was, a lot of pushback on this idea, and that was rough. I felt like she 100% disagreed with the path I wanted to take. There was zero support, but at the same time, I was like, I don't feel like I'm getting what I want and need out of this school, and this is a route I can take, and you don't have any good reason why I shouldn't take this route. And to do the official dropout, I did have to have my dad write and sign an official, my daughter is dropping out of high school with our support letter. I don't know how much that was required, but that was what we had to do. And so it was just, I had the backing of my parents, and we got that in. I think we submitted that, within like the last 2 weeks of school or something. And I had my GED scheduled for, I believe it was a week after the end of the school year. 2-day process, took my GED, got my scores back pretty soon, passed, not a huge surprise. And I was officially a high school dropout with my GED, head into college in the fall at 16 years old. And I should mention, fresh 16-year-old. My birthday was in April, so I had just turned 16 there at the end of the school year. And so that is the story of how I dropped out of high school after my sophomore year, totally skipped out on my junior and senior years of high school. Probably won't be ever invited to a high school reunion. Sure haven't at this point yet, since I didn't even graduate with my classmates. Took a little bit of an non-traditional route for myself, but that's why not? Mapping out the right path forward doesn't always look like the path that is the normal path for everybody. And in my case, it panned out. It definitely lit a fire under me to make sure I actually graduated from college, because otherwise high school dropout, college dropout might not have stacked up too well on my resume, but was able to get through that. And that is another story for another day. Thanks.